Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today we've got another detailed forecast update coming your way. We've got showers and storms across Tasmania, which includes severe weather as far out as New South Wales and Victoria. We're also going to be talking about that heat wave that's extending across central Australia. We'll take a look at some rainfall for the tropics of Queensland and some rainfall across the southwest of Western Australia, and we'll also take a look at a very powerful typhoon going for Japan. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Your support is greatly appreciated. So we're going to start things off over in Tasmania and in the south of the nation in general. A massive cold front and shower pool has blown through Tasmania, with showers and storms expected to continue for the next week in what's going to be a ferocious week of winter weather. Peak wind gusts last night were 140 kilometres an hour outside of the Derwent Valley. We also had wind gusts in excess of 120 kilometres an hour along that Cyclone Island and Low Rocky Point. Very high wind gusts reported across the remainder of Tasmania, and some significant wind gusts as well reported as far out in Victoria and across New South Wales as well. In fact, winds outside of Sydney down in Wollongong still at 70 kilometres an hour this morning, so it is a very widespread wind event blowing across the southeastern corner of Australia. And you can see it here on the wind map, especially with the wind gusts. You can see these purple areas highlighting winds in excess of 100 kilometres an hour, with pockets in the Bass Strait above 110 kilometres an hour, especially onto King Island and the Furneaux Islands. Some strong wind gusts also being reported across central Tasmania and into the Victorian Highlands and the New South Wales Highlands as well. In fact, they still do have those blizzard warnings in play for alpine areas across New South Wales and Victoria, and I imagine they'll be sticking around for a couple more days yet. Now, in terms of rainfall and snowfall, there's more rain and snow coming throughout the course of today, and that's on top of the up to 70 millimetres that has fallen, especially across the west coast of Tasmania. Some very significant rainfall accumulations have been reported, with some more on the way. You can see this westerly flow, which will ease off slightly, especially into the afternoon and evening hours of today. It's really going to be bringing in the absolute worst weather that Tasmania sees in a typical year, and you can see still those showers and snowfall accumulations piling up across the highlands along the west coast throughout tonight and into tomorrow morning. Very heavy accumulations are possible in terms of snowfall. In fact, up to 20 centimetres of the stuff is expected in just the next 24 hours alone. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to see the winds change back to a more northerly or nor'wester pattern, and that's going to be in the leeway of this big cold front that's going to be sweeping up again from the south. This one's very powerful, with a central pressure of 960 millibars and bringing pressures below 980 millibars to parts of the west coast of Tasmania. So expect a significant storm tide from this cold front as well as it makes its passage through late Thursday night into Friday morning. What a way to send off winter this is. A very significant cold front which will pile on the rainfall and the snowfall once again in the early hours of Friday. Conditions will temporarily ease off throughout Friday for Tasmania. Showers still expected across Tasmania and parts of the southern coast of Victoria and South Australia as well. The rain and snow will pipe up once again Friday night into Saturday morning, with rain and snow expected across much of Tasmania throughout the course of Saturday. And then for Father's Day, the rain and snow continuing as well. You can see significant accumulations are possible through parts of the west coast once again on Sunday, before a little bit of reprieve by Monday afternoon, once another big cold front has passed through Monday morning, or Sunday afternoon, Monday morning, which again will bring those destructive winds to parts of Tasmania and damaging winds to the majority of the state and some heavy rainfall. It looks like we're going to see a high pressure ridge build in its place, and by Monday afternoon those dangerous severe weather conditions are going to clear out of Tasmania. The showers will still persist through Monday and Tuesday, but once that high pressure ridge really does build over Victoria and New South Wales through Monday and Tuesday next week, the conditions will ease. For how long? It looks like they're going to be easing for a couple of days, but we still could be seeing some showers and potentially severe weather towards the end of next week, Friday and Saturday the 6th and 7th of September respectively. So yeah, a violent week is ahead, or a violent 5 days is ahead for Tasmania, with the worst of the weather being last night. We've also got some pretty nasty weather coming through Thursday night and Friday morning, then Saturday night, and a bit more nasty weather coming through Sunday night as well. So another 4 or 5 cold fronts, all of which will be severe, will continue passing through Tasmania. Now, in terms of rainfall accumulations, we're just going to kind of hammer home how much is expected over the next 5 days until Monday the 2nd of September. We're looking at accumulations peaking out at around 170 millimetres across areas close to Mount Reid and Rosebery on the west west coast of Tasmania. More coastal communities will be slightly drier. Strawn expecting a pretty measly 140 millimetres in comparison to what the Highlands will be receiving. Strathgordon also expecting a decent helping of rainfall up to 170 millimetres there, and isolated pockets of 200 millimetres possible along the south coast. Just outside of Mount Cyclone Island, that looks like a pretty good helping of rainfall there. Some good rainfall as well expected across the northeast national parks around those mountains outside of Scottsdale and Launceston, up to 130 millimetres possible there. Hobart expecting about 50 millimetres of rainfall, which is pretty significant for them, especially this time of the year. And this is reciprocated amongst the other forecast models as well. In fact, the Axis G3 daring to predict even more rainfall than what the other forecast models are saying, up to 250 millimetres of the stuff, which I must say is plausible considering the setup that we have with all of these fronts that are going to be lashing through Tasmania over the next week or so. We're potentially looking up to a further 250 or 300 millimetres falling for some of the more rainforesty areas across Tasmania. It really is a week of significant severe weather that's going to be moving through. Now, in terms of peak wind gusts, which is another very important factor of the forecast here, I've never seen such an array of pinks and purples across any part of Australia, even in tropical cyclones. This is a massive array of destructive wind gusts now in the forecast in excess of 115 kilometres an hour. Some of the valleys and little plains across Tasmania, especially around the east coast, will be spared from the really significant wind gusts, and they're only expecting wind gusts up to 80 or 90 kilometres an hour over the next 5 days. But in terms of the west coast, especially the southwest coast, expect peak wind gusts to be up to 130, potentially 140 kilometres an hour. So certainly going to be the strongest wind gusts and definitely the windiest week for Tasmania this entire winter, and probably the windiest week in a couple of years as well. So this certainly is a setup, that's for sure, on the forecast. And just take a look at all these strong showers and these big thunderclouds that are going to be moving through Tasmania over the coming couple of hours. These contain those dangerous storms that we're talking about, those very significant wind gusts and those heavy pockets of rainfall, and they're going to be moving across Tasmania for the next week or so. Another cold front you can see down here, which is kind of south of a line from Adelaide, and then another strong cold front south of a line of about Perth at this time, and all these weather systems are going to be moving through the Great Australian Bight and then slamming into Tasmania at some point in the next week or so. And that basically does it for the Tasmanian severe weather forecast. We'll just touch on New South Wales and Victoria. The weather does seem to be dying down there. There's still a good few pockets of rainfall expected across parts of Victoria, but they're just going to be a few showers associated with this weather event. Some good accumulations possible into the high peaks as well. And in terms of snowfall, a couple of good flurries are possible, especially across the high peaks of Thredbo and some parts of New South Wales. Those good accumulations do remain in Tasmania, where up to 100 centimetres of snow is possible, and about 40 to 50 centimetres of that stuff could settle and really add to the snow accumulations for winter 2024. But apart from that, especially across New South Wales, the weather looks pretty calm, pretty stable, and that leads us off very nicely into the next part of our video, which is the Central Australian heatwave. There's a couple of cooler days expected starting from about today, but you can still see temperatures quite warm across parts of Central Australia, already across Kununurra in West Australia's far north, up to 33 already, and it's, 9 o'clock at this time, so very warm indeed for this time of the day. Also pretty warm across the New South Wales coastline. You can see temperatures already above 27 across parts of Sydney, especially into the western suburbs. It's going to be quite a warm day there, and temperatures above 35 are possible across central Queensland throughout the course of today as well. You can see by midday today we're looking at temperatures in excess of 36 or 37 degrees, slightly cooler than what it has been over the last couple of days, but those temperatures, mark my words, are going to be warming up quite considerably. Tomorrow you can see temperatures up to 37 across parts of South Australia and the Northern Territory, and 35 across Queensland. Friday also going to be quite warm across parts of Central Australia between Alice Springs and Birdsville. There could be one or two spots picking up maximas of about 40 degrees there. Going to be a very warm way to send off winter, that's for sure, and some more warm weather is expected along a trough on Saturday, a little bit further north towards Mount Isa and Tennant Creek across the Northern Territory and Queensland, but it is going to be still very warm across parts of central Queensland and also parts of southeastern Queensland. You can see on Saturday afternoon temperatures as high as 35 expected in and out of Brisbane. A little bit cooler along the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, but into the mid-30s for the first time this wet season, or this northern wet season, at least for parts of southeastern Queensland. It's going to be quite a warm one on Saturday, and a little bit warmer still on Sunday across parts of central Queensland. This is when we turn to Western Australia to talk about the heat, because it's going to get really warm for the start of September. You can see temperatures consistently above 41 degrees for parts of northwest and Western Australia, around Roebuck and across to Fitzroy Crossing to start start of September on Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. Very warm indeed, also up to 40 degrees across parts of the top end across the Northern Territory, and potentially up to 40 degrees as far south as Clobiddy in the southern parts of Western Australia around that Euclid sort of area. And it's going to be very warm indeed for the early parts of September. But for a little bit of reprieve from the cool temperatures into the later parts of next week, but it's still going to be blisteringly warm across parts of northwest and Western Australia. Certainly is a heat wave that's developing here, and I'm surprised the Bureau of Meteorology hasn't really cottoned onto it in their heat wave forecast, but at this time it is still about a week away, so we will keep a very close eye on things. But in terms of temperature anomalies, I'll see if I can pull up a map for you right now. In terms of temperature anomalies across parts of the northern parts of Australia, we're talking about temperatures into the 99th or even the 100th percentile into early parts of next week. Just take a look at this here. Temperatures about 90% into the 90th percentile for parts of northwest and Western Australia, and a huge swathe of temperatures into sort of the top 10th percentile across parts of Western Australia as well, extending into the goldfields in the south interior. Very warm indeed for this time of the year. It's not often we see 40-degree temperatures until about mid-September across northwest and Western Australia, so it's about 2 weeks early, and I would say that that's going to be a pretty consistent trend for this wet season. The rainfall will be 2 weeks early and quite intense across parts of the top end. It'll also be in terms of cyclone season, I reckon that will come 2 weeks early as well. I just think that this wet season is going to be flung upon us very quickly compared to recent wet seasons. So yeah, I'll keep you very much in the loop around that. And just before I finish this video off, I've got two more things that I'd like to talk about. And that's rainfall up in the far north of Queensland. We do have a little bit on the forecast, especially into the early parts of next week between Monday and Friday. You can see across the Daintree up towards 60 or 70 millimetres expected up there, and along the Cassowary coast potentially a little bit more around sort of Fishery Falls and Belen and Kerr. That rainfall will likely blow out significantly from what is on the forecast here, especially considering we're talking about far north Queensland. Once those onshore flows set themselves up, it's really not going to be much that's going to be able to stop the rainfall piling on up there. Next Wednesday and Thursday look to be the wettest, where we could be seeing rainfall as far out as Bowen, Airlie Beach and Mackay in central Queensland, and some good falls also expected to continue into Thursday and early Friday morning, with accumulations probably maxing out at around 30 to 50 millimetres per day for about 3 days up there. So certainly some heavy rainfall. Again, like I've said before, 100 millimetres up in far north Queensland. It's not enough to flood a drain pipe, but when this rainfall really does start stacking on top of the soil moisture values, which are at near all-time highs across parts of far north Queensland for this time of the year, you can see how quickly flooding can start, especially in what looks to be the Daintree Valley. Well, we could definitely be seeing some flash flooding and river flooding up towards some minor or potentially even the moderate alerts by next Wednesday, Thursday and Friday if this rainfall does start piling on like the forecast is suggesting. In terms of rainfall over the coming couple of days, it really doesn't look like too much is on the cards. A few more drops are expected across the Daintree throughout the course of today, and in fact you can see them on the radar imagery right now. There are a few showers located just offshore, again not heavy and they're very isolated indeed, but a few good drops of rainfall are still possible, especially around Daintree Village and Port Douglas, but I don't expect anything to be higher than 10 or 15 millimetres, except in for the absolute wettest of locations. And just to finish this video off, we'll go and take a little look at southwest and Western Australia around the Perth area. We have had a cold front blow through overnight. The winds have swung back around to the northwest, which means another cold front is on the way. This one's going to be coming through tomorrow morning into the early afternoon hours, and it could be bringing a line of showers at around 9 or 10 a.m. tomorrow for the Perth metro area. A little bit earlier for the southern suburbs and slightly later for the northern and the eastern suburbs. Again, I don't expect too much in the way of rainfall from this system. Only a couple of millimetres, up to 10 millimetres is possible. Into the wheat belt as well, a few good drops of rainfall are possible. Another 5 to 10 millimetres expected out there in places, especially towards the west of Southwestern Highway. A few showers behind it for the south coast, continuing through Thursday night. But I reckon from about Friday night onwards, the showers will completely clear out of the southwest of Western Australia for a good couple of days. And in fact, under the influence of a high pressure ridge, it looks like from Sunday the 1st of September onwards for at least a good couple of days until another cold front comes through next Tuesday afternoon. It looks like some very good, calm and settled weather across parts of the southwest, and you can really tell that winter is starting to die down across parts of the southwest. Yes, there are still a few cold fronts that are going to be sweeping up. You can see them on the forecast late Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday next week. And in terms of rainfall accumulations, there is still a little bit of rainfall on the forecast, especially across the next 10 days. But again, we're not looking at the 150 millimetre accumulations that we were seeing just a few weeks ago. we're now looking at peak accumulations along the south coast up to 80 millimetres, and then along the Darling Range up to around 30 to 50 millimetres, and then for Perth itself only about 20 millimetres over the next 10 days. So you can really see that winter weather is starting to die down, with that rainfall not making it out into the wheat belt either, which definitely means winter is rapidly winding down. And once those temperatures get down into the wheat belt, especially into the northern wheat belt, which looks possible later next week, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, where temperatures will be as high as the mid to high 20s across parts of the northern wheat belt into the Gascoyne. It looks like summer is just a few weeks or maybe a month away for parts of the southwest. It really looks like things are starting to change now, and starting to change rapidly. I said this back in April, a short, sharp end to winter, and that looks like it is exactly what is materialising here on the forecast, which is fantastic to see. It's always great to have a correct forecast here. It wasn't a hard forecast, but it looks like we're getting exactly what was on said forecast back in April, which is great to see. And it's kudos to the Bureau of Meteorology and all of their forecasting devices as well. They did absolutely nail it for this winter across parts of the southwest and other parts of southern Australia as a whole. And on that note, I'm going to end off this video. Thank you so much for sticking around to this point. Your support lately has been greatly appreciated. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. And a weather report for your location would be nice in the comment section down below. If you've got anything else, any feedback that you'd like to add, also leave it in the comment section. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and I could not run this show without them. Their support is greatly appreciated. But that is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.